Hey everybody, Jordan here with Farm Builder, and I'm going to talk a little bit this evening about the situation of Polyface Farms, Joel Salatin. If you're in this space, you probably heard the announcement over the holiday weekend that they were beginning to ship. You've probably seen the response that they've gotten to that, some positive, quite a bit of negative, and their response to that and laying out their reasons why. And I thought it would be good to have a little bit of a discussion about what I've seen in the responses, some of the disappointment expressed, and maybe what might be some of the deeper issues worth considering in this situation, and how it applies to us, to our fellow farmers, and to this movement of local food, regenerative agriculture, and so on. I think there's a really important lesson in dichotomy in all of this, that really there's other farms that ship around the country, and none of them have had backlash whenever they started shipping. Our own farm here ships, but there is this really significant backlash when Polyface started to do it. And the reason for that is, of course, because it has been a very strong position that Joel has had for a long time, that, hey, they weren't going to ship, and they were emphasizing their local food shed, and that used to be their immediate county. Then it expanded out to some bigger counties, and then the state, and then within a 4-hour drive. And people are very disappointed in them for basically retracting a position that they've held for a long time. But why are people upset about it? I've heard a bunch of different reasons, from environmental considerations of packaging to carbon footprint to undercutting of their own markets and so on. And I did want to go in and address those, but I think what we maybe should have a discussion about is the very thing that the regenerative farm movement is against, and that is the blind adaptation of a rigid ideology, of rigid thought patterns, of path dependency is a word that I like to use for it, that we're always going to do the same thing in the same way for the same reasons. That is what the industry that a lot of us work to change, to influence, to defeat in a way. That is one of our points in pointing out the wrongness of how a lot of commodity agriculture has gone, is they have this rigid ideology of confinement houses, or of crop production level being the only thing that matters. Anytime that we get into a rigid ideology, it blocks out the ability to adapt to new situations down the road. And it really begins to boil back into a belief system. And I think that's where a lot of people are feeling personally upset about this, is it has become a violation of a belief system that they have subscribed to, and now the guru of the belief system is changing what he's saying, and that kind of change causes a lot of disruption. But is this a bad thing? And that's something that we need to talk about. Is it a bad thing to shift an ideology? Because a strongly stated ideology is what initially will bring about a change, and something that Joel has been foundational in the development of pastured poultry in the United States. That would not have happened if he did not take very strong positions and outline his thinking and his ideology on what pastured poultry was supposed to do. And having that strong position is what brings about a change. And we need to be careful that it doesn't fall into that pattern of becoming a rigid ideology. It has to stay flexible and loose. There has to be a balance of ideology with pragmatism. what is practical, what is the correct application in the current market. There's really no way that Joel could have seen what the market would do, back in the 80s and 90s. And so we have to have this balance between what is a healthy and right ideology, but also having this level of pragmatism in how we are going to apply that we cannot be an island unto ourselves. And so we have to have balance. There's dichotomy to a lot of this. What is the core principle? That's what we need to look at, is the core principle of a Polyface Farm or regenerative agriculture. Is it a long-term strategy of carbon sequestration, positive economic development, healthy food for our customers, for our families? Or is it this short-term, stick in the mud position on distribution? No one would have seen back in the 80s that Amazon would come along and revolutionize delivery. No one would have seen how the convenience culture would direct where food is going to go. Those things are unforeseen, as unforeseen as what it will be 30 years from today. Even the most idyllic ideology is subject to market forces. I think Joel talked in the one video about nostalgia and becoming obsolete. Even the most hardcore ideology is subject to market forces when you are in the business of selling something. And so you have to make a decision of, are you going to adapt? Are you going to change aspects of what you do? Or are you going to expire? Something else to consider is no solution is a perfect solution. Yes, shipping certainly incurs more single-use packaging. You hope people will recycle it, give it to another farm to, and use it, maybe even ship it back. But let's be honest, a lot of it's going to end up in the landfill. But no solution, no solution is a perfect solution. But is it a better solution than what you had before? If the only options are supporting a agricultural system that you don't subscribe to, or shipping, which one is the better choice? These are things that we have to deal with every day. And all of us, producers, consumers, policymakers, everyone has to make up our own mind on where this balance is going to sit and what we are comfortable with. There is no perfect solution, perfect world. Second point here is market implications. That people were concerned about Polyface coming in and undercutting their market. Let's look at this perhaps at a different angle. Maybe it's a good thing that there is so much demand that farms are now beginning to get into shipping, that people are emailing them and saying, hey, I want to buy your product. I can't find it here locally. Maybe they aren't doing their due diligence looking around, but they are demanding the product, and we would be foolish not to meet that demand. So this is a good thing, as pasture-based meats, regenerative agriculture, these products are becoming more and more into the public awareness, and the public is beginning to demand them. So are we going to sit at home and say, well, I'm only going to do this in my food shed? Or are we going to adapt and to begin to ship? I think there's a way to do this ethically and unethically. Ethically is carrying that cost onto the customer, saying, hey, this is the price that we have for our product here on the farm. That is a fair price for the farmer and the people who are working here. It's capturing the full representation of the cost. It's not being offset by subsidies, blah, 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 blah. The drill there. And this is the convenience charge that you as the customer will now pay for this product to be delivered to your door. And from what I can see with Polyface, that is what they are doing. I went and checked out their website, went through the sequence, picked out a package of pork chops, and there was a shipping charge included there that was high enough that it would make me think long and hard about doing that. And I might do a little bit more looking around my local area to try to find something. I think that is the best way to go about this. Like I said, no solution is a perfect solution, but this is a fair and honest solution, which I think deserves credit. Will this affect your local market? Sure, it might affect it a little bit. I don't think it would be that much, though. We are talking about a huge marketplace here in the United States for food, and I'll talk about the numbers here in a minute. But what is a correlating fact to this is marketing is hard work. That the days of just throwing out a sign, having people come out to your farm, customers beating down your doors, those days are gone. As more farms have moved into the space, as marketing has improved, people have gotten better at the game. Marketing is hard work. Sales are not going to fall into your lap. So in a way, this should serve as a wake-up call for all of us to actually do the job of marketing. Marketing is going to be about 50% of the man hours spent in a direct-to-retail farm business. That's a lot of time spent on marketing, building that customer base, and developing it. And I go into a lot more detail in our marketing schools about how we do that and what we think are the best ways to build that customer base and keep them loyal to you. I'm not worried about another farm shipping product to my customer base because I have what they can't beat, and that is direct personal relationship with my customers that can't be beat by a Butcher Box, a Blue Apron, an Amazon, or a Polyface, or any of these other guys that are shipping around. I think it's time for the regenerative food movement to have a discussion amongst ourselves about, is this for real? Is this just a fad niche that we are filling here in the short term that will always just be a fad little kind of niche thing, and we're going to compete and squirrel and scramble around each other for a small slice of a pie that never expands, that we are servicing just the 1% of eaters? I hope it's not. Fad niches fade away. And if we are truly building something that will have lasting impact for a large percentage of the population and actually influence food policy, begin to affect these kind of changes, we've got to get over this notion that this is a niche thing that we have to be worried about there being too many fish in the small pond, and do the work of marketing. I know that's a hard thing to stomach perhaps, but some farms are better at marketing than others, and those are the ones that carry the torch forward. This is, I guess the two-edged sword of free market capitalism. Let's consider something though, for say a farm is worried about a Polyface coming in and undercutting their client base. Pulled some numbers here. Say we take an average city of 1 million people, of which there are 10 cities the size in the United States. There are 44 counties in the United States that have a population of over 1 million people. Your average American today is eating 222 pounds of meat per person per year. That is a bunch of meat, and Michael Pollan is probably fainting somewhere about that number, but that's another thing. For this county or city of 1 million people, that is 111,000 tons of meat. And so how many animals is that? That's 27 million chickens, 910,000 turkeys, 400,000 pigs, and 140,000 cows. Now, honestly, Polyface is a fraction of 1% of that. They are not a threat to anyone's market in any kind of significant way. You might have a customer buy from them once or twice. And if that is a significant portion of your market, you've got work to do on building your market. So let's keep this in perspective here. We are all very small farms in this space. The number of chickens raised in the United States represented at all of the producers present at the American Pastured Poultry Producers Association conference in Dallas, Texas last winter. That number of chickens is produced every 3 months by my neighbor who has several large poultry houses. So there is not too many fish in this pond. It's just we are growing up and learning how hard marketing actually is. but by no means are we saturating the market with product. So last thing I think we should talk about with this is some lessons learned. What can we take away from this situation? Little parent conference right there. There's some lessons to be learned from how they rolled that out. Let's be honest. It came off a little bit clunky, and I think that's part of the reason a lot of people had that immediate reaction. And listening to their explanations, they said, "Hey, we said something about it in our spring newsletter. That was 4 or 5 months ago. People forget about that stuff. Not a lot of people are getting that. They spoke about it at conferences. Not many people go to conferences, compared to the number of people who say follow them on Instagram or Facebook. And so there was a less than ideal rollout of how the information was presented. What we don't perhaps understand today, when a point is made that we said it in our spring newsletter. 30 years ago, that was the way information was distributed about your farm. You sent out the spring newsletter, and that was kind of the info for the year type of thing, and we'll have more info next year on what we've changed. The acceleration of information distribution has gone through a parabolic upswing where information is released and changes on the hour, sometimes less than that. Every day there's something new going on. Information is being pulled from here. The information news cycle right now, that there's something's huge for a day or two, and then it's gone. It's like you never saw it again, and it's on to the next thing. So I think there's a lesson here for all of us in understanding this acceleration of information distribution, that it's going to happen fast, it's going to go far and wide, and it can blow up faster than we think it will, and that we can stay out in front of. Staying on point with messaging when it comes to big changes. This is a big change for their farm, and I think they've done a good job sticking to the point of why they were doing it, but you have to say that stuff over and over and over again, that people are hearing something, 5 minutes later they forgot about it. So you got to start repeating key big chunks of information multiple times, and it can feel repetitive if you're making this post every day or every couple days for a period of time. But guess what? All social media has algorithms that are controlling who sees it and who doesn't. And it's going to be one crowd one day, another crowd another day, who shares it, what time of the day it's released, what day it's released, what else is going on in the social media world. So you might release something 10 times and your average customer only saw it twice. So that's something to keep in mind. Saying the same thing over and over again. Consistency with whatever your messaging is. If you're making a big change in the direction of your farm, it's developing, fleshing out that idea, hammering on that, and keeping it to some core, simple points for why you're making a pivot with whatever it might be. The last thing I wanted to cover here, this is kind of going back, and we'll tie it up with the ideology aspect of it, that when you have a thought leader, when you have someone who pioneers a new direction in an ideology, in a production model, whatever, a lifestyle, that person is viewed as an innovator. And of course, Joel is a very renowned innovator in this space for pasture, poultry, pigs, management. Certainly very well known, well spoken, well respected in this space. But you can't always be the innovator, and there is a danger when any one person is put up on that pedestal of being the guru of anything, of lifestyle, of business, of culture, of music, whatever. When that person is elevated to that status, there's a tendency to want to copy and paste everything they do. Hey, Tony Robbins said to do it this way, so I'm going to do it that way. Joel Salatin said to do it this way, so I'm going to do it that way. You get where I'm going with that. That person isn't always going to be the one with the best idea. You can't always be the innovator of anything. Sometimes you have to take a market-proven idea and you have to adapt what someone else innovated. And that's truly what some of the best entrepreneurs do. the best marketers do is they innovate some stuff themselves, but then they look over here and say, hey, this is what this guy did. That's what that guy did. I'm going to pull a little bit from this idea, a little bit from that idea. I'm going to put together a hybrid of what these guys are doing. And that's what smart business people do. That's what smart entrepreneurs do. And I would encourage all of us to have that mindset of, hey, don't have anybody as a guru. Take what is really good from them that applies well to your situation. Look over here, see what this guy is doing. Take what's good for them, apply it to your situation. And that will begin to build grace and forgiveness into our attitude for things like this. Honestly, what right do we have to be upset with the business decisions that anyone makes? Do we know better what's going on in their business than they do? Do we know the struggles that they've gone through to arrive at a particular change, especially something so significant as almost a core tenet of your distribution and marketing model? These are big changes, and to have kind of a flippant reaction to it indicates that person has sat in that position of being a guru in your life, and can do no wrong and will never let you down, instead of being a thought leader and an innovator who has good ideas that you respect, you admire, you're going to pull some from, but hey, it's okay to listen to someone else as well. Sorry about that. So just some ideas here. Wrote some down today. Wanted to talk them through. Polyface is 70 miles away from me. They are a competitor for our farm. We are in one of the most saturated markets for pasture, naturally raised, grass-fed meats in the country. Maybe that's been good for us because we have a thick skin to these kind of things. We're all in the same space, competing for different customers, growing our businesses. It's made all of us better. And I think this is a good thing for regenerative agriculture. This is a good thing for the pastured meats movement, because it's time for all of us to get better at what we're doing, to step up our game and take what we do every day as something very serious. So look forward to what you guys have to say about that. Feel free to drop a comment and let's have this discussion. These are big things, but for this movement to grow up, we got to have these kind of talks. So I look forward to that, and you all have a great evening. We'll see you around out there. And as always, get after it.